Is that one of your grafts?
Yeah, this is a Sweet 16 that I grafted last year. And you can still see the wrapping around.
My name is Patrick Mann. I'm a software engineer. I work for Microsoft here in Seattle. I'm a city fruit orchard steward, which means I volunteer and take care of fruit trees in the urban space. So here at MEU we have older fruit trees and a mix. Most of them we believe are seedlings, and so the apples are not of the greatest quality. So we're interested in improving the quality of the apples, and we are doing that by grafting known good cultivars onto the seedling rootstocks.
I love your pop can labels. Now, that is such a great idea.
I learned to graft from reading, from the internet, YouTube, and from just doing it and seeing year over year what worked and what didn't. So this is, I think, my 4th or 5th year that I'm grafting. So here are some basic tools that I use for grafting, and I wanted to show them to demonstrate that you don't need to buy a $50 or $150 grafting knife. Instead, you can use a box cutter. You break off a new blade, you've got a sharp, nice blade, which allows you to make the clean cuts that you need for grafting. Then, once you've made your graft, you need to wrap the graft both to secure it in place and also to reduce moisture loss until it's healed in. But something you can use that's very available is electrical tape. Electrical tape works nicely because it's a little stretchy. So if you stretch it a bit as you wrap your graft, you can exert some pressure on it, which ensures that good contact, and it's also waterproof, so it seals in the moisture and keeps it nice and green. The other thing I use, which I discovered last year, is this gutter sealant. At the end of your scion wood, there's a cut usually, because you've cut off a little section of scion to graft in. And if you don't seal that, then you'll lose water from that cut end, and that typically often leads to a failure of the graft. So in grafting, you have a rootstock, the tree that's growing in place, and a piece of wood that you took from a desirable variety, which we call the scion wood, and you're trying to make the scion fuse with the rootstock. So the first step I do is, we've already cut down the tree, but I'm now going to do another cut to expose some fresh green wood that will be better to graft onto. So that looks good. Now the next step would be to peel back the bark. So I made a cut in the bark and I'm peeling it away a little bit. I peeled it away, and it sort of naturally releases at this boundary between the hardwood and the bark, so it exposes the cambium that we're interested in. And now we kind of want to work fairly quickly to not expose the living cells too long to oxygen and sunlight. Now here's my scion. This is a pear scion I cut in winter and kept in the fridge. And I'm just going to try and expose a long surface by making a diagonal cut. I want the surface to be a nice flat surface, so that it will have lots of contact with the wood that I'm placing it against. And I actually do it on both sides. Like, I have one bigger side which is going to face in, and then I expose a little bit on the other side. It gives me a nice point to insert it into, and also exposes some more wood. So what we're looking at is really just this tiny little green layer outside, on the outside of the cut. That's what's going to grow if everything works out. So then I just take this and I insert it here and just push it in. I'm just going to cut it back to a couple of buds. I'm picking this one because it's outward facing and I like it. And so I'm hoping it's going to grow out of here. Go ahead and wrap it all with my tape, making sure I stretch it tight to give me a give me some pressure on this bark to seal it in and to really bring those cells and to make sure those cells of the scion and the rootstock are in contact so that they can heal together. Once it's healed, you're going to come back maybe in summer and remove this tape again. So this is pretty decent, and now the only thing I still need to do, I have an exposed surface up here that I need to take care of, and the tape doesn't work very well. So for that I use my trusty gutter sealant, and I just dab a little bit onto it, like so. So that'll dry in no time. And maybe for good measure I can put a little around the base too, just so it doesn't dry out. Put a label on it and then come back in a month or two and see what it's doing.
Off now. And you can see, it's budding out, so it took, which is...
So it's alive.
Yeah, very gratifying.
So if these buds weren't protruding so much, how would you know if it didn't survive? What would it look like if it had died?
If it had died, it's pretty obvious because it dries out and shrivels and it gets this wrinkly kind of look to the bark, but this bark is nice and smooth, alive. So now I've taken it back and you can see that what I did here was a cleft graft. I split the branch and inserted it into it because it's a thinner caliper branch, and that worked.
Thank you, Patrick.